In the peaceful town of Maplewood, Michigan, 6-year-old Pamela Taylor was skipping home through Whispering Pines Park on a cloudy afternoon. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of approaching rain. For Pamela, it was just another day, her golden pigtails bouncing with each step, her bright blue eyes reflecting the darkening sky above. But in an instant, her familiar world would shatter when a massive German shepherd suddenly blocked her path, refusing to let her pass. What happened next would leave an entire community in tears and change this little girl's life forever. Before I reveal why this brave dog stopped Pamela that fateful day, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and join our community of true story lovers. Drop your country in the comments below. I respond to every comment personally. And if you believe incredible stories like this deserve to be shared, smash that like button. It helps more people discover these moments that restore our faith in humanity. Maplewood wasn't the kind of place where much happened. Nestled between rolling hills and dense forests in northern Michigan, it was the kind of small town where everyone knew everyone else's business, where doors remained unlocked at night, and where the most exciting event of the year was the 4th of July parade down Main Street. For the 3,000 residents who called it home, Maplewood represented safety, a haven from the troubles of the wider world. The Taylor residence sat at the edge of Whispering Pines Park, a modest 2-bedroom home with peeling white paint and a small front porch where Pamela often sat with her mother on summer evenings. Jessica Taylor had raised her daughter alone for the past 3 years, ever since Pamela's father, Daniel, had been deployed overseas with his National Guard unit. A nurse at Maplewood Memorial Hospital, Jessica worked double shifts to keep a roof over their heads while counting down the days until her husband would return. That Wednesday afternoon had begun like any other. Pamela had bounced off the school bus at the corner of Maple and Elm, her frozen backpack nearly as big as she was. Jessica had been waiting at the bus stop as usual, her hospital scrubs rumpled after a 12-hour shift. "How was school today, sunshine?" Jessica had asked, taking her daughter's small hand in hers. "We learned about butterflies." Pamela had replied, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Ms. Peterson says they start as caterpillars, but then they go to sleep and wake up beautiful. Can we get a butterfly, Mom? Please?" Jessica had laughed, the sound bright in the afternoon air. "We'll see, sweetie. Let's get home first." Mrs. Rodriguez dropped off some cookies earlier. They had just settled at the kitchen table, Pamela dunking chocolate chip cookies into a glass of milk, when Jessica's phone rang. The hospital. Emergency. All hands on deck. A multi-car pileup on the interstate. Jessica's face had fallen as she ended the call. "Pamela, honey, I have to go back to work. There's been an accident, and they need nurses." "But you promised we'd watch Moana tonight," Pamela had protested, her lower lip trembling. "I know, sunshine. I'm sorry." Jessica had knelt beside her daughter, brushing a stray blonde curl from her forehead. "Mrs. Rodriguez will watch you until I get back. It won't be long, I promise." 15 minutes later, Jessica had hurried out the door, leaving Pamela with their elderly neighbor next door. 15 minutes that would change everything. Mrs. Rodriguez had settled into her porch swing, her arthritic hands working on a crochet project while Pamela colored at a small table nearby. The late afternoon sun had filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the yard. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Pamela had said suddenly, looking up from her drawing. "I forgot Mr. Snuggles at home." Mr. Snuggles was her stuffed bear, the one her father had given her before deploying, the one she couldn't sleep without. "We'll get him when your mother comes back, Majita," Mrs. Rodriguez had replied, not looking up from her crocheting. "But I need him now. I can just run and get him. Our house is right there." Pamela had pointed across the park. "I can see our roof from here." "Your mother said to stay put, Pamela," Mrs. Rodriguez had insisted, but her eyelids were already growing heavy in the warm afternoon air. At 78, the woman often dozed off during her afternoon watch. Pamela had waited, watching as Mrs. Rodriguez's head slowly nodded forward, her crocheting needles growing still in her lap. Then, careful not to make a sound, she had slipped off the porch and headed toward the dirt path that cut through Whispering Pines Park. It wasn't really disobeying if Mrs. Rodriguez was sleeping, right? She'd be back before the old woman even noticed she was gone. The park buzzed with the sounds of nature, birds calling to one another, squirrels chattering as they leapt from branch to branch. But as Pamela ventured deeper along the path, something changed. The birds fell silent. The rustling leaves stilled. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon as Pamela skipped along the familiar trail, humming the theme song from her favorite cartoon. She didn't notice the fallen branches from last night's windstorm, didn't hear the distant rumble of thunder, didn't sense the sudden stillness that had fallen over the woods. All she could think about was retrieving Mr. Snuggles before her mother returned home. When she rounded the bend that would lead to her backyard, Pamela froze mid-step. Standing directly in her path was the largest dog she had ever seen, a German shepherd with alert ears and intelligent eyes. The dog wasn't growling or baring its teeth, but its stance was firm, unwavering. It stood like a sentinel, blocking the narrowest part of the path where dense bushes grew on either side. "Nice doggy," Pamela whispered, her small voice quivering in the sudden silence. She took a step backward, remembering her mother's warnings about strange dogs. The shepherd took a step forward, matching her retreat perfectly. Pamela's heart fluttered like a trapped butterfly. She turned to run back to Mrs. Rodriguez, but the dog barked sharply, once, twice, causing her to freeze again. The sound echoed through the trees, seeming to bounce off the gathering storm clouds above. And that's when she heard it, a low rumbling growl that didn't come from the German shepherd. Something was moving in the bushes behind where she had been standing, something large and dark and dangerous. The shepherd's ears flattened against its head, but it didn't retreat. Instead, it positioned itself more firmly between Pamela and whatever lurked beyond. From somewhere behind her came a voice. "Max. Stand down." A tall man in a park ranger uniform emerged from between the trees, moving with the careful precision of someone used to wilderness encounters. His badge caught the fading sunlight. Officer Scott Williams, Maplewood Park Service. Is he your dog?" Pamela asked, still keeping her distance from the German shepherd. "He is," Ranger Scott said, kneeling to meet her eye level. His expression was gentle but concerned. "And he's specially trained to protect people. Max has been with the Park Service for 5 years now. He can sense danger before most humans can." As if to confirm this, Max remained focused on the bushes, his body tense, his dark eyes never wavering. "What's your name, sweetheart?" the ranger asked, slowly moving closer to Pamela while keeping one hand on his radio. "Pamela. Pamela Taylor. I live right over there," she pointed toward her house, just visible through the trees. "I was just going to get my teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles. I forgot him this morning." Something in Ranger Scott's expression shifted. A flash of recognition, then concern. "Taylor? From Sycamore Street." Pamela nodded, confused by his reaction. "Am I in trouble?" "No, honey. But the park's being evacuated right now." He pressed a button on his radio. "Control, I've located the Taylor girl. Section 5, Eastern Path. Send backup immediately." His voice was calm but carried an urgency that made Pamela's stomach twist into knots. "Evacuated? But why?" Pamela asked, her voice small against the growing rumble of thunder. She glanced nervously at Max, who was now backing toward them, his body positioned protectively in front of both of them. "There's been a," Ranger Scott began, but was cut off by a sound that made Pamela's blood run cold. From the bushes emerged what looked like a mountain of fur and muscle, a massive brown bear, disoriented and aggressive, likely pushed from its territory by the approaching storm. In Maplewood's 100-year history, there had never been a bear sighting this close to residential areas. "Don't move," Ranger Scott whispered, slowly pulling Pamela behind him. "When I count to 3, we're going to back away very slowly. Max knows what to do." But they never made it to 3. The bear charged and Max, loyal brave Max, launched forward in a blur of black and tan. The German shepherd didn't attack directly but darted around the bear, barking and snapping, drawing its attention away from the human targets. Ranger Scott didn't waste the opportunity. He scooped Pamela up in one fluid motion and ran, his long legs eating up the distance as they headed not toward Pamela's house, but back toward the park entrance. "Max!" Pamela cried, watching over the ranger's shoulder as the dog and bear disappeared into the underbrush, the sounds of barking and roaring fading behind them. "We can't leave him." "Other rangers will help him," Scott assured her, though his voice lacked conviction. He reached his Park Service vehicle and placed Pamela inside, buckling her seatbelt before jumping into the driver's seat. His radio crackled with voices, urgent calls about the bear sighting, but also something else. Something about Sycamore Street. "Control to Williams, do you copy?" The voice was tense, professional. "Williams here. I have the Taylor girl. We're en route to station." Bear confirmed at Section 5. "Max is engaging." "Copy that." Bear response team deployed. "Be advised. Police request you bring the girl directly to station. Situation at the Taylor residence. Details on secure channel." Ranger Scott's face darkened. He glanced at Pamela in the rearview mirror, her small face pinched with worry. "What about my mom?" Pamela asked, catching his expression. "Is she okay?" "Your mom is fine," he assured her, though he couldn't know for sure. "She's still at the hospital helping people. We're going to take you somewhere safe until she can come get you." As they pulled away from the park, Pamela noticed they weren't heading toward the ranger station at all. They were driving toward town center, where red and blue lights flashed against the darkening sky. Police cars lined the street, officers moving with purpose, radios squawking. "Why are there so many police?" Pamela asked, her eyes wide with confusion and growing fear. "Is it because of the bear?" Before Ranger Scott could answer, a police officer approached their vehicle. A woman with straight black hair pulled into a tight bun. Her nameplate read Officer Chun. She opened the passenger door and knelt beside Pamela. "Hi there, Pamela. I'm Officer Chun. We've been looking everywhere for you." "But I just went to get my bear," Pamela protested, tears welling in her eyes. "Mr. Snuggles. I need him to sleep." Officer Chen exchanged a look with Ranger Scott. "Pamela, sweetheart, did you see anyone near your house today? Anyone who might have been watching you or following you?" The question made no sense to Pamela. Why would anyone be watching her? She was just a first grader. Not important enough for anyone to notice. Before she could answer, a car screeched to a halt nearby, and Jessica Taylor burst out, still in her hospital scrubs, her face streaked with tears. "Pamela." Mother and daughter collided in an embrace that seemed to last forever, Jessica's body shaking with silent sobs as she clutched her daughter. "I thought I lost you," she whispered into Pamela's hair. "When Mrs. Rodriguez called me, when she said you were gone." "Mom, why is everyone so scared?" Pamela pulled back, searching her mother's tear-stained face. "Did something bad happen because of me?" Jessica cupped her daughter's face between trembling hands. "No, baby. Not because of you." She looked up at Officer Chun, who gave a small nod. "Pamela," Jessica said, her voice carefully controlled, "someone broke into our house this morning. Mrs. Rodriguez called me when she realized you'd gone home alone." "Broke in?" Pamela's bottom lip trembled. "You mean like a robber? Did they take my toys?" The adults exchanged glances again, a silent communication that Pamela couldn't understand but could feel, heavy and frightening. "No, honey," Officer Chen said gently. "We don't think they were there to take anything. We think they were." She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "We think they might have been waiting." "Waiting? For what?" Pamela asked. But before anyone could answer, all attention shifted to the sound of approaching sirens. An animal control truck pulled up, followed by another park service vehicle. And to everyone's amazement, emerging from the second vehicle was a limping but very much alive Max, his fur matted with blood, some his own, some not. As Pamela broke free from her mother's embrace to throw her arms around the brave shepherd, no one noticed the dark sedan parked across the street, or the man inside watching the scene unfold through a telephoto lens, his expression hardening as he reached for his phone. "It's me," he said quietly into the receiver. "We have a problem." The dog interfered. "The girl is with police." He listened for a moment, his knuckles whitening around the phone. "No. It's not over. We stick to the plan. We've waited 3 years for this. What's a few more days?" The police station hummed with activity as Pamela sat wrapped in a shock blanket, Max lying protectively at her feet. The German shepherd had refused to leave her side since their reunion, growling softly whenever anyone approached too quickly. A veterinarian had cleaned his wounds, superficial scratches from his encounter with the bear, but had declared him otherwise healthy and remarkably brave. "He's a hero," the vet had said, scratching behind Max's ears. "Bears usually send dogs running. This one stood his ground." Jessica sat beside her daughter, one arm wrapped tightly around her small shoulders as though afraid she might disappear again. Her phone buzzed constantly, Hospital colleagues checking in, neighbors offering support, and finally, a video call from overseas. Daddy. Pamela's face lit up as Daniel Taylor's pixelated image appeared on the screen. Despite the poor connection, his concern was evident in the deep lines etched across his forehead. "Hey, princess," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "Mom told me what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Daddy. Max saved me from a bear." Pamela stroked the shepherd's head as she spoke. "He's my friend now." Daniel's eyes shifted to Jessica, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. "Not now. Not everything. Their daughter didn't need to know the full truth yet." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Daniel said, forcing brightness into his voice. "Listen, I've got some news. I'm coming home." "Really? When?" Pamela bounced in her seat, causing Max to lift his head alertly. "Soon. Very soon. The Army's arranging emergency leave. I'll be there before you know it." As Jessica took the phone to speak privately with her husband, Officer Chen approached with Ranger Scott and a man in a dark suit who introduced himself as Detective Marshall from the State Police. "Mrs. Taylor," Detective Marshall said once Jessica ended her call, "we need to discuss what we found at your home." His eyes flickered to Pamela. "Perhaps somewhere private?" Jessica hesitated, unwilling to leave her daughter after the day's events. "It's okay, Mom," Pamela said, showing wisdom beyond her 6 years. "Max will stay with me." As if understanding his new responsibility, Max sat up straighter, his intelligent eyes scanning the room for potential threats. In a glass-walled conference room adjacent to the main area, Jessica listened as Detective Marshall laid out the disturbing evidence found during their search of the Taylor home. "We found sophisticated surveillance equipment hidden throughout your house," he explained, spreading photographs across the table. "Cameras in smoke detectors, light fixtures, even inside the air vents. All feeding to an external server." Jessica's hand flew to her mouth, her face draining of color. "Someone was watching us? For how long?" "Based on the dust patterns, at least 3 weeks," Officer Chen said gently. "And there's more. The IP address we traced." She glanced at Detective Marshall, who nodded for her to continue. "It's linked to North Lake Correctional Facility." Jessica's knees buckled, and Ranger Scott quickly guided her into a chair. "No," she whispered, shaking her head in denial. "It can't be." "Marcus Reed was released 26 days ago," Detective Marshall confirmed, referring to notes on his tablet. "No one notified you because he served his full sentence for stalking. Legally, they weren't required to." "He promised he'd come back for us," Jessica said, her voice hollow with fear. "Before they took him away, he said he'd never stop. I thought it was just anger talking. It's been 5 years." "Stalkers are persistent," Detective Marshall said grimly. 5 years is nothing to someone obsessed. And Reed wasn't just any stalker, he was methodical, patient. His obsession with you predated your relationship with Daniel. "But why now?" Jessica asked, wiping away tears. "After all this time." "We think he was waiting for Daniel's deployment," Officer Chen explained. "Creating the perfect opportunity when you'd be most vulnerable. And based on what we found in his prison communications, he's not working alone." Outside in the station, Pamela watched the adults through the glass walls, their serious expressions making her stomach hurt. She couldn't hear their words, but she understood enough. Something very bad had happened, something to do with her house and possibly her. A young officer had given her a juice box and some crackers, which she shared with Max. The shepherd had accepted the offering delicately, his eyes never leaving the main entrance to the station. "You're a good dog," Pamela whispered, leaning close to his ear. "The best dog ever." Max's tail thumped once against the floor in acknowledgement. The station doors swung open, and a man in a delivery uniform entered carrying a large teddy bear. "Special delivery for Pamela Taylor," he announced, checking a clipboard. The officer at the front desk frowned. "Who sent this?" "Card says it's from Maplewood Elementary. For the brave little girl." The delivery man shrugged. "Got a signature here from the principal, Ms. Winters." The desk officer relaxed slightly. "I'll need to check it first. Standard procedure." As he reached for the bear, Max suddenly lunged forward, teeth bared, a deep growl rumbling from his chest. The force of his movement yanked his leash from Pamela's grasp as he positioned himself between the girl and the delivery. Whoa! The delivery man stumbled backward, nearly dropping the bear. What's with the dog? The commotion brought Jessica and the others running from the conference room. Pamela! Jessica cried, rushing to her daughter. Max just started growling, Pamela explained, confused by the dog's behavior. He doesn't like the bear. Detective Marshall approached cautiously, eyeing the delivery. Who did you say sent this? Maplewood Elementary. Got the order by phone about an hour ago. The man handed over his clipboard. Principal's signature right there. Officer Chun was already on her phone. This is Officer Chun, Maplewood PD. I need to speak with Principal Winters immediately. After a brief pause, her expression hardened. She's what? Are you certain? Another pause. Thank you. She turned to Detective Marshall. Principal Winters is at a conference in Chicago. Has been since yesterday. In one fluid motion, Detective Marshall drew his weapon while backing away from the package. Everyone clear the area now. Get the bomb squad here. Chaos erupted as officers evacuated civilians from the station. Jessica clutched Pamela to her chest as Ranger Scott ushered them toward the rear exit, Max following closely. Mom, what's happening? Pamela cried, frightened by the sudden urgency. It's okay, baby, Jessica assured her, though her voice trembled. We just need to get somewhere safe. As they rushed through the back parking lot toward a waiting police cruiser, Max suddenly stopped, his hackles rising. He turned toward a row of parked cars, a low growl building in his throat. What is it, boy? Ranger Scott asked, scanning the area. From behind a dark sedan stepped a man in a maintenance uniform, his face partially obscured by a baseball cap. At the sight of the group, he quickly ducked back out of view. Police! Stop right there! Officer Chen shouted, drawing her weapon. But the man was already running, disappearing between buildings. And in that instant, the night air shattered with a deafening sound of an explosion from inside the police station. The explosion rocked the night, sending a plume of smoke and debris into the darkening sky. Glass shattered outward as the front windows of the police station blew apart. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, then chaos erupted. Officers scrambled toward the building while emergency vehicles wailed in the distance, their sirens piercing the evening air. Get down! Ranger Scott shouted, shielding Jessica and Pamela with his body as secondary explosions popped inside the station. Max circled them protectively, his ears pinned back, muscles coiled and ready. The bear, Pamela whispered, her small voice barely audible above the commotion. It was a bomb? No one answered as Officer Chun coordinated with other officers, her radio crackling with urgent communications. Suspect fleeing on foot, west side of the station. All units respond. Detective Marshall emerged from behind a patrol car, his face streaked with soot but otherwise unharmed. Everyone inside that station was evacuated, he confirmed, his voice hoarse from smoke. No casualties reported yet. Bomb squads en route. He turned to Jessica, his expression grave. This wasn't random, Mrs. Taylor. This was coordinated, timed perfectly with our discovery of Reed's surveillance. Jessica pulled Pamela closer, her entire body trembling. He's trying to kill us. No, Detective Marshall shook his head. If he wanted you dead, there were easier ways. This was a distraction. And a message. He glanced around the chaotic scene, his eyes narrowing. Where's the suspect? Officer Chun spotted. Lost him between buildings, Ranger Scott replied. SWAT's forming a perimeter, but this area has too many exit points. As emergency responders swarmed the area, they were moved to a secure location, a hotel on the outskirts of town with armed officers posted at every entrance. The hotel manager had cleared an entire floor for them and other evacuees from the blast zone. Inside a corner suite, Pamela finally slept, emotionally exhausted from the day's events, with Max curled protectively at the foot of her bed. In the adjoining room, Jessica sat with Detective Marshall and Officer Chun, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. We've identified Reed's accomplice, Detective Marshall said, sliding a photograph across the table. Jacob Mercer. Former security specialist. Did 2 tours in Iraq before receiving a dishonorable discharge for excessive force during an interrogation. Jessica stared at the photo, a hard-faced man with cold eyes and a military-style crew cut. I don't recognize him. You wouldn't. He met Reed in prison 4 years ago. They shared a cell for 6 months before Mercer was released. According to prison records, they stayed in touch through a third party, a visiting cousin who was actually ferrying messages between them. But why? Jessica asked, her voice breaking. Why is Reed so fixated on us? On Pamela. Officer Chen's expression softened with sympathy. It's not about Pamela. It's about control. And revenge. She hesitated before continuing. We found journals in Reed's former cell. He blames you for everything, his arrest, his imprisonment, losing his job. In his mind, you ruined his life when you rejected him and chose Daniel instead. That was before I even met Daniel, Jessica protested. I broke up with Marcus because he was controlling, possessive. He wouldn't take no for an answer. Men like Reed don't see rejection as your right, Detective Marshall explained. They see it as a temporary obstacle. Something to overcome. When you married Daniel and had Pamela, it shattered his fantasy that you'd eventually come back to him. A knock at the door interrupted them. Ranger Scott entered, his expression grim. They found Mercer's vehicle abandoned at a gas station 20 miles south. Security footage shows him switching to another car, a blue sedan reported stolen yesterday from Lansing. He's running, Officer Chen observed. Maybe, Detective Marshall said, unconvinced. Or regrouping for another attempt. Jessica's phone buzzed with an incoming call, Daniel, from the military transport bringing him home. She stepped into the bathroom for privacy, leaving the officers to continue their discussion. Max is the wild card here, Ranger Scott said once Jessica was out of earshot. Reed couldn't have planned for him blocking Pamela's path today. If she'd made it home. He didn't need to finish the thought. They all knew what could have happened if Pamela had walked into that house alone. The bear was real. Officer Chen asked. Ranger Scott nodded. Very real. Animal control tranquilized it after Max led it away from Pamela. That's what makes this so strange. Max didn't just save her from Reed's trap. He saved her from an actual predator too. Some would call that divine intervention, Detective Marshall said quietly. I call it damn good luck. In the bedroom, Pamela stirred in her sleep, whimpering softly. Max immediately lifted his head, ears perked forward, watching the child intently. When she settled again, he resumed his vigilant position. Dawn broke over Maplewood, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that belied the tension gripping the small town. A black SUV with military plates pulled up to the hotel entrance, and Daniel Taylor, still in his desert fatigues, emerged, his face haggard from 36 hours of emergency travel. The reunion was tearful and intense, with Pamela launching herself into her father's arms the moment he entered the suite. Daddy, you came home. Of course I did, Princess, Daniel whispered, holding his daughter as if he'd never let go again. Nothing could keep me away. Max approached cautiously, sizing up the newcomer. Daniel extended his hand, allowing the shepherd to catch his scent. After a moment, Max's tail wagged once in approval. This is Max, Pamela explained proudly. He saved me from the bear and the bad men. Daniel's eyes met Jessica's over their daughter's head. The unspoken question clear. How much does she know? Not everything, Jessica mouthed silently. As the family reunited, Detective Marshall received a call that made his blood run cold. He stepped into the hallway, his voice low but urgent. Are you absolutely certain? When? He listened intently, his expression darkening. Lock down the hospital immediately. No one in or out. I'm on my way. He returned to the suite, his professional demeanor barely containing his alarm. There's been a development, he announced. Marcus Reed was spotted at Maplewood Memorial Hospital 20 minutes ago, dressed as an orderly. He accessed the pharmacy before security was alerted. Jessica gasped. The hospital? But why would he? Her eyes widened in sudden understanding. Oh God. My co-workers. My friends. They don't know what he looks like. We have officers en route, Officer Chen assured her. The hospital's implementing lockdown procedures now. But Daniel had gone rigid, his military training kicking in as he processed a different angle. "It's a diversion," he said with absolute certainty. "He wants us focused on the hospital while he makes his real move." "What real move?" Ranger Scott asked. Before Daniel could answer, Max suddenly leapt to his feet, hackles raised, a deep growl building in his chest. He faced the hotel room door, his entire body radiating alarm. In the same instant, the power throughout the building cut out, plunging them into semi-darkness. Emergency lights flickered on in the hallway as the hotel's backup generator engaged. "Everyone away from the windows," Detective Marshall ordered, drawing his weapon. "Chun, get on the radio. Find out what's happening." But Officer Chen's radio produced only static. "Communications are jammed," she reported, her hand moving to her sidearm. "Someone's blocking all signals in and out." A hotel phone on the bedside table rang shrilly in the tense silence. After 4 rings, Detective Marshall picked it up cautiously, putting it on speaker. "Hello, Jessica," came a voice that made Jessica Taylor collapse into a chair, her face draining of all color. "It's been a long time." "Marcus," she whispered. "I'm disappointed in you," Reed's voice continued, eerily calm. "Did you really think a dog and a few cops could keep me from what's mine? Look outside your window." Despite the detective's warning, Daniel moved to the edge of the curtain, peering carefully onto the street below. What he saw made his military-hardened expression falter for the first time. The hotel was surrounded, not by police, but by a raging forest fire, advancing rapidly toward the building from all directions. "Everyone out. Now." Daniel commanded, military training taking over as he scooped Pamela into his arms. The fire's spreading fast. They've blocked the main exits. Detective Marshall was already on the move, checking the emergency exit map on the door. "East stairwell should be clear. We stay together, single file. Scott takes point, I'll take rear. Chun, stay with the family." Max barked once, sharp and urgent, moving to the door but then doubling back to the bathroom, pawing frantically at the tile. "What is it, boy?" Ranger Scott followed, noticing what the humans had missed, a service hatch in the ceiling, likely connecting to maintenance tunnels. "Marshall, we've got another way out." As smoke began seeping under the door from the hallway, they worked quickly. Daniel hoisted Ranger Scott up first, who confirmed a crawlspace ran above the entire floor. One by one, they climbed through, Jessica first, then Pamela, then Officer Chun. Max whimpered, too heavy for Daniel to lift alone. "I'm not leaving him," Pamela cried, reaching back down through the opening. "He saved me. We can't leave him." Daniel and Detective Marshall exchanged glances, then nodded. Working together, they lifted the 85-pound shepherd through the narrow opening, his legs scrambling for purchase as Pamela pulled him to safety. They crawled through dusty maintenance tunnels as the hotel burned beneath them, guided by the faint glow of emergency lights. When they reached a junction point with a ladder leading down, Ranger Scott descended first, finding himself in the hotel's kitchen, empty but filling with smoke. "Back door's clear," he called up. "But we need to hurry." One by one they climbed down. Outside, the night air was thick with ash and smoke, the forest beyond the parking lot a wall of advancing flame. But the kitchen exit faced away from the main fire, offering a narrow escape route toward the river that cut through town. "If we can reach the water, we'll be safe," Officer Chen said, checking her weapon. Her radio crackled suddenly. Communications were back online away from the hotel's jammers. "Chun to dispatch. Officers trapped at Lakeside Hotel with civilians. Forest fire closing in. Northeast corner, heading toward river. Need immediate assistance." Static, then a voice broke through, "Copy that, Chun. Fire department deployed. SWAT diverting to your location. Be advised, suspect vehicle spotted near river access point." "He's waiting for us," Detective Marshall realized. "The fire's herding us right to him." Daniel's face hardened with resolve. "Then we give him what he's not expecting." They moved as one unit through the woods, staying low to avoid the worst of the smoke. Max took point, his acute senses guiding them along the clearest path. When they reached the riverbank, they paused in the shelter of a boathouse, assessing the situation. "There," Officer Chin whispered, pointing to a dark figure pacing near a small motorboat tied at the dock. "That's Mercer." "And Reed." Detective Marshall asked. Likely nearby. They're cutting off our escape routes one by one. Daniel turned to Jessica, taking her hands in his. Jess, listen to me. I need you to take Pamela and follow the river north with Officer Chun. Ranger Scott's going to create a distraction. Detective Marshall and I will handle Reed. No, Jessica protested. We stay together. Mom, Pamela said softly, her small voice somehow cutting through the chaos. Max can protect us. Like he did before. As if understanding his role, Max pressed against Pamela's side, alert and ready. Trust me, Daniel pleaded. This ends tonight. Reluctantly, Jessica nodded. They split into groups, Chin leading Jessica, Pamela and Max along the riverbank under cover of trees, while the men prepared to confront Reed and Mercer. Ranger Scott moved first, creating a diversion by setting off a boat alarm further down the dock. As Mercer rushed to investigate, Detective Marshall circled behind him, weapon drawn. Police. On the ground now. Mercer spun, reaching for a concealed weapon, but froze when he found himself facing Marshall's service pistol. Where's Reed? Marshall demanded. A slow clap echoed from the shadows as Marcus Reed stepped into view, holding a detonator in one hand. Bravo, detective. You caught the hired help. But you're still too late. It's over, Reed, Daniel called, stepping into the open. The fire department's containing your blaze. SWAT's on the way. There's nowhere to go. Reed's eyes narrowed with hatred. Daniel Taylor. The hero returns. His thumb hovered over the detonator. Did you think I'd come unprepared? There are charges placed along your escape route. One press, and your family joins you in oblivion. What Reed didn't know was that Jessica, Chen, Pamela, and Max had veered from the path, following the shepherd's lead away from danger. Max had sensed something wrong, the scent of explosives or perhaps Reed himself, and guided them safely around. You won't press it, Daniel said calmly, taking a step forward. Because deep down, you know Jessica never chose you because you never deserved her. Reed's face contorted with rage. You took everything from me. No, Marcus, came Jessica's voice as she stepped into view from an unexpected direction, Officer Chun beside her with weapon trained on Reed. You lost everything yourself. Seeing Jessica, Reed's finger twitched toward the detonator. In that split second, a blur of black and tan launched from the bushes, Max, jaws closing around Reed's wrist with precision. The detonator clattered to the ground as Reed screamed in pain and surprise. SWAT officers swarmed the scene, taking both Reed and Mercer into custody. As paramedics treated Reed's injured wrist, he stared at Jessica with hollow defeat. I just wanted what was mine. I was never yours, Jessica replied simply, turning away from him forever. 3 months later, the Taylor family stood in their new home across town, rebuilding their lives. Reed and Mercer had been sentenced to multiple life terms for attempted murder, arson, and terrorism. The surveillance evidence from their home had revealed the extent of their plot. Reed had planned to take Pamela, believing that by raising Jessica's child, he could force her to eventually return to him. Daniel had received a compassionate reassignment to the National Guard base just outside Maplewood, keeping the family together. And Max, officially retired from Park Service, had found a permanent home with the Taylors, sleeping each night at the foot of Pamela's bed. He always seems to know, Jessica remarked, watching Max follow Pamela through their new backyard. Even before we do. Some guardians find us when we need them most, Daniel said, wrapping an arm around his wife. Not always in the form we expect. On Pamela's 7th birthday, the entire town gathered to honor Max with a special Medal of Bravery, the first ever presented to a K-9 officer in Maplewood's history. As Pamela proudly placed the medal around her furry protector's neck, the crowd erupted in cheers. Sometimes, Mayor Wilson told the assembled townspeople, it takes unexpected heroes to show us what true courage looks like. A German shepherd who blocked a little girl's path, and in doing so, saved not just her life, but showed us all what it means to stand between innocence and danger, no matter the cost. Max sat tall beside Pamela, his intelligent eyes surveying the crowd as if still on duty. Because in his mind he always would be, a guardian who had found his purpose in protecting a little girl who had, in turn, given him a family. As Pamela wrapped her arms around Max's neck, she whispered the words only he could hear, "You'll always be my hero." And Max, in his quiet, steadfast way, would always be there, standing between her and whatever dangers the world might bring. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button right now to join our community of true story lovers who believe in the power of courage and protection. Drop a comment telling me which moment moved you the most. Was it when Max first blocked Pamela's path, or when he launched himself at Reed in that final confrontation? Like and share this video so others can witness this incredible story of an unlikely guardian who reminds us that heroes come in all forms. Sometimes, what looks like an obstacle in our path is actually protection from something worse ahead. And remember, sometimes the greatest acts of courage come from those who cannot speak, but show their loyalty through unwavering action. Subscribe now for more powerful true stories that restore our faith in the goodness that exists in this world, even in its darkest moments. Until next time, this is Heart of a Dog, reminding you that sometimes, our greatest protectors find us exactly when we need them most.